state of play also this morning, tweeting this. Come on, Republican senators, you can do it on health care after 7 years. This is your chance to shine. Don't let the American people down. There you have it. Joining me now to discuss the state of play, Democratic Congressman and Minority Whip in the House, Congressman Steny Hoyer. Congressman, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Good to be with you, Kate.
So as any repeal, if it's passed in the Senate, it gets you all to conference. What then?
Well, I don't know what then, but this is not a skinny repeal in terms of the adverse impact it's going to have on millions of Americans. CBO says immediately 16 million people are going to lose their insurance, but millions and millions more are going to see their premiums substantially increased, even those that have employer-based insurance. So that the impact here is going to be very substantial. But what it indicates is it's certainly not repeal either. It's what the Republicans, after 7 years of trying to put something together, the only thing that they've been able to put together that may pass the Senate. I hope it doesn't pass the Senate. Very frankly, I'd be surprised if Rand Paul votes for this, who said he was for repeal. This is not repeal. And I'd be surprised that more moderate senators who are very worried about the impact in their states and on the people would vote for this. So we'll see. But obviously what they want to do is to get to conference. If they get to conference, my view is they'll get an even worse bill than has been proposed so far. Nothing they have come up with has been appealing to the American public or not been harmful to millions and millions of people who need and want health care.
Well, again, let's see what plays out today and where it heads after this. This morning, I have to ask you, Congressman, the reports of the White House infighting exploded on CNN. The president's director of communications, he's upset about leaks coming from the White House, saying that if the chief of staff is not a leaker, Reince Priebus should explain that for himself. What is your take on it from the outside looking in?
Well, this administration has for 7 months brought us chaos, conflict, and confrontation. This is another stark example of that. How any organization can operate with the conflict and confrontation that has been a daily occurrence in the White House. I'm not too upset that it's harmful to, frankly, the White House staff, but what I'm very concerned about is the risk that it puts our country at and the undermining of our president's and the White House's attention to critical matters confronting this nation, both on the national security level and on the domestic level. But it's just extraordinary. I've been here 36 years, Kate, as you know. I've never seen anything like this out of any White House, Republican or Democrat. It is a stark demonstration of the inability of this White House and this administration to lead this country in a constructive way.
Let's see what happens on Twitter next. On Russia sanctions, Congressman, the House and Senate will soon be sending the sanctions bill to the president for his signature. This is, though, again, the White House Communications Director, Anthony Scaramucci, this is what he said about the sanctions bill this morning. Listen to this.
He may sign this. He may sign the sanctions exactly the way they are, or he may veto the sanctions and negotiate an even tougher deal against the Russians.
He may veto it for a tougher deal against the Russians. What's your reaction to that?
My reaction is that is totally contrary to what the president's been talking about for the last year and a half, and how Putin is a good president. He's popular. He's a tough leader. He wants to work with him. I don't know where the communications director got this thought that the president has given any indication that he wants to make sanctions tougher. So we'll see whether he signs the bill. But frankly, if he doesn't sign the bill, I think the Congress will clearly and quickly override his veto. This bill is a result of the Congress's conviction that the sanctions levied on the Russians and on the Iranians as well as the North Koreans are appropriate and should stay in place until a deal is made that has Putin back off from Crimea, from Ukraine, from Syria, and the Iranians stop their human rights abuses and their support of terrorism, and that the North Koreans stop pursuing nuclear weapons and the ability to deliver those weapons. So I think it's very clear that the Congress, in a very bipartisan fashion, 98-2, 419-1, overwhelming, and 419-3 in the House on the sanctions bill, that the Congress overwhelmingly is concerned that this president might lift sanctions, not make them tougher, lift sanctions, and wants to make sure that that's not done without the Congress's participation.
We're just getting some breaking news in from Barbara Starr involving the president's announcement banning transgender people from serving in the U.S. military. Barbara Starr is reporting that the Joint Chiefs did not know that the announcement was coming, and also she read a statement from the chairman saying that they're not going to implement the changes until they hear it directly from the president, and it's in consultation with the Secretary of Defense. There are a lot of questions right now about what all this actually means. Do you know?
I don't know, but it is another indication of chaos, conflict, and confrontation. The president, in putting out his tweets, which I think were an appeal to prejudice and division, and not consistent with what the armed forces were asking for, nevertheless said, well, the generals have told me. I don't know which generals he's talking about, but when I hear the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff had no idea that he was going to do this, it's another indication that the only reason this was done to appeal to some House members and the Hartzlers of the Congress who wanted to and offered an amendment to discriminate against those transgender members of the armed forces, which was rejected by a bipartisan vote of the Congress. This was an effort to go around the Congress, to not have the courage to face this one more time on the floor of the House of Representatives, in which that amendment would have lost, and do indirectly what they couldn't do directly. It's a shame, it's wrong, and it's shocking that this was not done in consultation with and with the agreement of the leaders of our armed forces.
Congressman Steny Hoyer, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
You bet, Kate. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.